everyone. Welcome to Your Freedom Hub's Accelerating Financial Freedom. I'm your host, Jeff Cantor, along with my co-host, Matt Nye. These are an ongoing series, so please register or tell others. Here's the website to go to, yourfreedomhub.com/AFF. And do remember that we are being sponsored by Your Freedom Hub. These programs are being recorded, as I said, and you can see them on the following channels. They're on the most popular channels out there: BitChute, Brighteon, and YouTube. And just to give you a little quick tour down there, this is the site as you go to register. This is the Freedom Hub site, and there's an awful lot of interesting stuff here between these various links. And then the videos are being archived on these various channels, as I indicated. So, but for today, we're going to take a very interesting walk down my financial lane. So, you know, this is a financial series, and today we're going to really get into something quite unique. We've got Monica Urquidi with us today, Urquidi, I mean, and we're going to kind of talk about money, lending, gold. We're going to talk about hemp and lending into that industry, mining, and then also monitoring dollars and what's happening globally with money. So I think you're going to find this to be a very, very unique and interesting event today. So Monica, I want to definitely welcome you today. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Appreciate it.
I just wanted to get into one of the things that I mentioned to Jeff. I like to study trends because trends are what affects finance. And so I spend quite a bit of time looking at things on like YouTube or the internet, educating myself in what's going on in finance. But before I get into that, I'll just do a quick overview of the different type of lending venues that are available and what's going on in the market. There's common mistakes a lot of entrepreneurs make is they quit their job and they want to go into business and then they want to get a loan. Well, one of the ABC of lending is you need to have income. So if you're going to start a business, the time to get a loan is before you go on your own. And you need something to loan against. Now, you can loan against your house if you have a house, or you can loan against your income. That's right, your income. So say if you're making $100,000 a year, but you have no home and you have real good credit and very little debt, there's companies out there that will lend you around $250 to $350 unsecured. Then after that, you could quit because a lot of them are interest only. I mean, you can save some of the money to make the payments, that type of thing. The other thing in startup lending is a lot of people think they need a business plan to get a startup loan. No, you need money and experience to get a loan. The business plan, nobody really cares about because they just want to get paid back. And if you're looking for investor money in this world, unless you have experience in the field you're in or extensive business experience, you're just not going to get the financing. So I started out in cannabis and hemp because I like things that are kind of edgy and difficult and that are challenging. And then what I noticed as I went into that field, the successful entrepreneurs that I found had a high need for alternative financing. So they needed things like gold finance. They had mines. One guy I had is selling the tailing from a coal mine, and they're going to be making batteries out of the tailings, and the tailings are residual. And then I started looking for different lenders or lender groups, and I found different people that were loaning in different countries even. It's possible. And lending as well in the US. And the main thing was, do they have private money? And private money, a lot of people think it's easy money. No, remember it's private money because those people knew how to make money. So while they'll be all outside of the box, though they're going to loan more than a traditional bank, they're going to charge you more, and you still have to give them a reason to loan you the money. In other words, show that you can somehow pay it back. And anything in lending that is involving building, you better have really good credit and a decent net worth, or it's not going to happen. Construction loans. I've had a number of people come for construction loans, and they're borrowing $30 million and they don't even own a house. I mean, who's going to loan on that? Think about it, just common sense. So as I got into the field, I started learning that a lot of people didn't realize what they needed. So part of what I do is I get them to do a personal financial statement. I have them fill out a little questionnaire to see where they're at and tell me about their future plans. And then I will bend over backwards to any client that gives me a good reason to help him. But they've got to give me a good reason to help them because my time is valuable too. I go from a perspective of service, but it has to be a win-win situation. So in other words, I'm going to help somebody. I'm going to bend over backwards and be relentless in helping them get their financial needs taken care of. But I want somebody that's going to prove to me, and they don't necessarily prove it just by their posture and the way they handle themselves and what they own, that they're, so to speak, proposal worthy. And a lot of times when I'm working on a deal with a client, we will charge them some upfront fees. And part of it is because I want to make sure they're real. Not a lot, but some upfront fees. And I've done things like help somebody get raw rubies financed. Or right now I'm working on somebody who basically we're going to create a bank for him. And I have investor partners and lender partners that will help me do that. I don't do it on my own. It's all about networking and leveraging my network. So some of the things that I talk to Jeff about is I tend to follow trends because I want to see how money is going to trend. And what I've noticed lately, because I'm having a harder time getting lending done in the smaller venue, is that there's problems going on in our currency. We're going through some changes. We're going through some currency differences. Part of it may be the coronavirus, but part of it isn't. So way back into September, we started doing something called quantitative easing. And one of the sites that I told Jeff about, a guy that I follow, he has a website and he has a YouTube channel. His name is George Gammon. I don't know if you want to pull that up, but George Gammon, you can put your email in there, and he calls him the rebel capitalist. Now that guy, if you are, I say he gives business investing and handing macroeconomics for dummies, because I've been able to figure it out just by listening to him and seeing what he does. So what he does is he actually was, I think, a real estate expert initially, and then he started going off into different avenues. So he introduced me to something called quantitative easing. So quantitative easing is basically, there's something called the overnight exchange. So when you go to a bank, every bank must have a certain amount of reserves in the bank, or they will be declared insolvent by the Federal Reserve, by the FDIC. Okay. So what they do is they go and it's all done by computer. They meet at a place. And if there's not enough cash in there, that overnight rate goes up. So way back towards the end of September, it went up to 9%. And so all of a sudden, and it hadn't happened since 2008, the Fed started injecting money into our currency, and our currency is fiat currency, which means that it floats. There's nothing really backing it. Now, currently, our debt to currency ratio is we have 2 times as much debt outstanding as we have currency. Now, China is in worse shape. They have 4 times as much debt outstanding as they have currency. So what does this mean? This means that the slightest little thing possibly could put some of our banks out of business. And back when we had that at 9%, something was going on. Probably somebody was very, very short. They had way more debt than they had on reserve. So they flooded the market. And then recently, it started going on again with the coronavirus. It went up to, even with the Fed taking down the rate 0.5%, it went up to 1.8, almost 2%, and they like to keep it at 1. So what that meant is there wasn't enough money going out there. Now, you can't keep this going on forever. I mean, George will talk about it. There's also another site or a YouTube channel that I told him about called, I think it's Financial Vision Freedom. I can't remember the name, but yeah, not the Intercept. Yeah, Real Vision Finance. Yeah, that one. Now, Real Vision Finance, that guy recently started the channel, I want to say about a year ago, but like if you just look up how unfunded pensions will destroy your retirement. I mean, that is a real, if the way it's going with the stock market, like something that somebody didn't talk about, is they had that huge drop last week. That's people's pensions funds. That means that their pension funds are underfunded. And during the 2008 crash, we did have a few municipal bankruptcies, and that was because they couldn't pay pension funds. That's what was going on. And you're saying, well, why should I worry about this? I'm not the pension funds, because the way the big boys play, it trickles down. So the more problems there is in lending, the banks can visibly go under. And what happens is if the banks go under, then you have only your central bank, which, believe it or not, none of the central banks are really private. They're all privately owned. They have contracts with the government, but they're not the government. So like in Europe right now, Deutsche Bank practically went under a few weeks ago. But then one of their economists steps in and went over to Deutsche Bank. But Deutsche Bank was on the cusp of ruin. HSBC Hong Kong. And a lot of this stuff I've learned from just watching these different things was in trouble too. Because the Chinese have been borrowing like crazy. And when there's a lot of borrowing going on, it's supply and demand, debt goes up. So will there be money available if we have, and we will, we're going to have some sort of crash? Yes, but it's going to be more expensive. And so how are you going to be more credit worthy? So this is where I went with it. Anytime currency crashes, there's an inverse reality where commodities goes up, which means gold, even silver and diamonds, but mostly gold. And I think gold's at what, 1,500? It's gone up quite a bit since a year ago today, and that's because they know it's going up. So then I started looking into gold investments, and like one of the things I'm putting together right now is getting a group of us. We're going to get the money together, and we're going into gold. That's the thing as a group, because are any of us wealthy enough to do it on our own? No, but as a group, we can do a lot. And that's the thing to remember, is you've always got people with you, people that'll help you, people that'll do things, people with more knowledge capital, people that have, I mean, one of the people that I'm working with, he had some connections into the central bank. So in what we're doing, that helped a lot. Another friend of mine knew how to do some international things that's going to help us put basically a gold-backed bank together. I don't want to get into the details. But that's something to remember, is that you're never, ever really going to fail, to me, unless you choose to, especially if you're dealing in money markets. So it's always, what do they say? Diversify, diversify, diversify. I mean, that's really true. If you talk to any financial planner, or even my husband, who's an accountant, he'll tell you that a lot of the clients were in real estate. Well, if you're just in real estate and they're not lending, how are you going to get your money out? But gold is something where if it's high, you can at least get a loan against it, or you can cash it in. So that's where I got into gold. And then the Intercept, which is a news site that I told Jeff about, the reason I got into it is just because their news is real accurate. It's kind of conservative, and it's one of the nonprofit news sources. And I just found that they had good news. So I think you have the wrong thing up here, but it's the intercept.org. Maybe it is Intercept Technology, but intercept.org. And they just, we don't get like the foreign news. Now that's interesting. Anyway, I'll have to send the website. Maybe it is the Intercept. Let's see that. But anyway, so, but we don't get the foreign news. And a lot of times what goes on in another country, yeah, there you go. Elizabeth's Warren campaign fell apart in the fall, and it never recovered. See, and they'll put amid COVID virus. This is a membership what's it called, news source, but they have a lot of things in here that are from all over the world. So I tend to look at it, and it's not particularly liberal. I am more of a progressive, but it's not particularly liberal, and it has everything in there that you need to know about. And so I tend to look at it and see what's going on, not only in the world, but in the country, and you'll find things in there that you won't find anywhere else. That's that's like one of the news sources that I look at. And then the other one is, oh, the gold guy. That's way at the end. And that's just, like I said, a lot of these things that I do, it's kind of like big finance for dummies. And I look up things. I mean, that's how people get educated. There's a lot of people out there that aren't particularly bright, but they know where to research, and they take what little knowledge capital they have and make money. And he has the hidden secrets of money. And Mike Maloney, other people know about him. He's very good. I didn't put down Ray Dalio, but as a, how can I put it? On purpose, I look for anything with Ray Dalio in it because I think he's brilliant. Wouldn't you agree, Jeff? I mean, he's a really good guy. So Ray Dalio is one of the most famous billionaires in the world. He gives out his information freely. And when he talks, I listen because he's written several books too, and I'd recommend any of them. If you're not much into reading, just get him on Audible. I mean, Audible's probably one of the best things you can do. Yeah, he's a philanthropist, and he's absolutely brilliant. He runs Bridgewater Associates, which I believe is a private equity firm or a hedge fund, one of the two. But he's pretty damn brilliant, and I do tend to follow him. Look at over 1 million followers. So he is somebody to listen to. Anyway, so that kind of completes my talk. It's kind of short and sweet. Any questions?
I would say there should be plenty. What I was going to be curious about is, with the realities of the central banks and the fragility of the normal banks and, all this extraneous lending that's going on, or borrowing, I should really say. What do you think is going to be the future of money or for finance in general in America or in the world for that matter? If the U.S. dollar loses its hegemony and whatever else is going to happen on the heels of that.
If the U.S. dollar crashes, which I do think they're poising it to do, and I'm going to get even more evil. I think that the 1%ers are allowing this to happen, even creating it. It's going to be pandemonium because they're going to think they can take it over, and they're just not gonna. That's why I'm going into gold, because as long as we have something, we'll be able to fight back. I mean, if you look at the way the world is, money's here to support people, not the other way around. And we have a society that basically worships money. Worships money.
Yeah.
Money comes before anything,
right,
in American society today. I mean, if you look at the way the earth is dying, it's a metaphor for the way we treat people. How can they expect anybody to give a damn about the earth if nobody gives a damn about people?
And they've been doing a pretty good job of trying to destroy the idea of relationships. Let's get everybody up on the internet and they'll talk to people remotely. And it seems like they're trying to break down the idea of the family, that everybody's an autonomous individual and that you really don't have a group to rely on. You're going to look to the government or others to help be your mom and your daddy, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm not a libertarian. I mean, I kind of lean that way, although more of a progressive. I've come to terms with the fact that man left unfettered just becomes a mother, you know what. So that's the problem. I mean, I would love to have like Medicare for all, okay? If you've ever gone to a government agency, you know why a lot of people don't want Medicare for all.
Sure.
Because they just, there's a lot of waste, they don't treat you right.
They have no incentives, to do the right thing either. They're just all about trying to get their paycheck too.
I mean, that's the thing. They're just trying to get their paycheck. Exactly. So anybody that's gone, like the one experience I had one experience in my life where I went to get Social Security. I was going through menopause and I had to apply for, not Social Security, for unemployment. And I didn't fill out the form right. And I'd had a secretary for like 18 years. And then the gal there started yelling at me. And I looked at her and I thought, There's years in my life I've made so much money. I've paid like two or three of these people's salaries. And I looked at her and I go, you're a public servant. And I said, you're not supposed to make me sound stupid. I'm having hormonal issues. I mean, it's just modern, ordinary compassion. I think one of the things I brought up with you, Jeff, is that a lot of progressives very much get along with what you are, which is a libertarian. And it's because we're both for social justice, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
We both believe the world should treat each other right. We just have different ways of getting at the same answer, right?
Typically, everybody sort of seems to want to get to the same place, but they definitely often have very different ways to think to get there. Some
Yeah, so
fanciful and some realistic.
yeah, some are realistic. So that's the issue is the world, and like Ray Dalio again. I mean, when I see that he's a philanthropist, I follow it. I mean, Bill Gates was on. He had online like a blog you can subscribe to, and they interviewed him there, and he said, I should pay more taxes, but absent paying the credit, because he went ahead and said, he created a foundation. But I mean, that's the whole thing, is it's that much wealth in one person's, and I won't deny anybody the right to make money. What I'll deny them is the right to kill people to make money. That's what I'll deny them. There's nothing wrong, like I told my son, I said, there's nothing wrong with capitalism. Don't blame men's behavior, on what they're doing. It's not their fault. Or actually, it's not the system's fault, it's these people. So that's the thing. That's the only reason I became more progressive than libertarian, is because I saw that absent even that, with all the stupid government waste and everything, and believe me, there is tons of it. My husband's an accountant, and if you want to deal with the government, he talks to the IRS all the time. He's a tax arbitrage specialist. I mean, getting through to them is ridiculous. But the point of it is something has to be done. This world has to be a better place. And I do agree with you that collaboration is the way we're all going to get through this.
It's the only way in the end, really. Because as you see, when you're talking about, how people seem to be so immune and so callous and stuff, but yet watch a car flip over on the freeway and suddenly all these motorists stop and everyone rushes over to help. So that underlying desire is there within everybody. You have to foster and have the ecosystem to bring it to the fore. And the way we've been, like you've described, we're on a trajectory to do nothing but suppress it and almost chastigate that idea of the community coming together. We need to look to the powers that be our guardians and our guides.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, I'm not a big Trump fan, but I told somebody, I said, I'm not going to deny anybody the right to vote for Trump, because that's their right.
Sure.
And I'm not going to hate them for voting for Trump. What I would get upset is if they didn't show up and vote.
Yes, exactly. Because then they have no right to complain because they're not participating. But those are the ones who are quick to try to judge or complain.
Yeah, I just said, so if they vote for Trump, let them vote for Trump. And it's not your right to tell anybody how to vote, because we're Americans. That's the whole point of being American.
Well, and by the same token, we'd like to use that expression, and it is pretty accurate. You need to earn the vote. So like when some of these candidates that have been dropping out with the Democrats and they're almost trying to play the victim card, it's like, no. The other person had a more compelling story, or their circumstances, or some set of rationale made everyone want to vote for that person. So you didn't do enough, or your message wasn't right, or something was wrong that you didn't get to be the candidate.
Yeah, so at any rate,
that's
where I am. I mean, I was just talking to one of my clients, and he was saying that. I go, it is your God-given right to vote for whoever you want, and nobody should criticize you, because that's your right. And that's the way it is. And like in my business group, I mean, one of the people in my business group is a Tea Party. Two of us are progressives. So what? We're all Americans. We all have good ethical values. Yeah, we differ a little bit on how we want it vetted out, but that's all it should be. I mean, all this label making, I don't know how we got here. And believe me, this system, this banking system, we're in trouble. The yield curve is inverted in Europe, which means they're not making any money off of their banks. And
Yeah,
if
they're
you
in
want to see an inverted
negative.
yield curve here, there'll be no lending except for the very special few.
It's a
That's what's
scary,
going to happen.
yeah, and it's a scary thought if we get to that place, because how's the average person going to suddenly function that's got a mortgage and a car loan and student loans and credit card debt and all the rest of that? What's going to happen when the whole world turns upside down for that person? That was pretty interesting conversation, to be sure, Monica. I definitely wanted to kind of thank you for being here today, and to remind everybody that this recording is available and readily able for you to share. And you're going to certainly want to reach out to Monica in the areas where she would be able to help you. And again, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. And as a reminder, please recall that you're going to want to register for future ones of these events. And there are going to be some really good ones coming up in the coming weeks. So we do meet every other Thursday. So I will see you very soon. And thanks again for everyone for attending.